Thank you guys for coming again this afternoon. This really is probably the more exciting part of the story because it highlights, I think, what God does, but also it especially for my part in this second part, I think it kind of pulls together the whole process of how, like, on the brochure, I said how when one member of the family grows and changes, it has a ripple effect throughout the family. And so I think that can be felt more in this one than in the previous ones, because we're diving into the recovery process, not just for the individual, but for the family. So we're excited to continue to share with you, and I'm going to kick us off with prayer, and then we'll jump in. Father in heaven, thank you again for letting us come here to worship you by sharing what you have done in our lives. And so we ask your Spirit to be here, to lead us, and to guide us. Amen. So, parents, you can come on up. We're changing it up a little bit.
You're on that side?
I mean, I can move over, but...
Confusing me.
Yeah, confusing. So we left off as recovery was just starting to happen. And this next part, I'm going to give a little bit more latitude for you guys to share, and I'll interject with some questions as you go on with this. But really what we want to hear from you is tell us about this process that you were going through, the things that you were learning, and both individually and together as a couple.
Okay, great. Want to start?
You can start.
All right, well, we started Celebrate Recovery 10 months into recovery, so I had left my last and final 5th treatment program and went back to our church and knew that there was a need for not just myself, for potentially other people as well that were struggling with anything in silence that was really debilitating for them. Went to our pastor, and he was so gracious to say, yes, you can start a Celebrate Recovery.
Can you tell us what Celebrate Recovery is in a nutshell?
Yes, Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-based 12-step program that takes you through the 12 steps, with Jesus Christ being the higher power, our higher power, one and only. And the format of it is people come and they share a testimony, and then they share teaching of the 12 steps. After the large group meeting, men and women break off into what's called open share groups, and that's where I feel the power really is. That's where people begin to open up about the things that they're struggling with that they haven't maybe shared about ever, in some cases, or a lot. Maybe they haven't shared it a lot. And so it's a safe place with guidelines of accountability for safety. So one of the things that I love the very most about Celebrate Recovery is that it really hones in on it being safe. What you see here, who you see here, and what you hear here, we do not share with anybody. So if I see you, I'm at a meeting and I see you at the grocery store, I'm not going to say to you, hey Tom, I just really appreciated what you shared, or I heard about what you shared. So-and-so, we don't do that. We just wave and say, hi, how are you? God bless you. We do our own thing. And so the leaders that are involved in that really understand the importance of the safety of that, the accountability of that, and understand that for us ministry leaders and the leaders we have underneath us, as well as for me being state rep, I'm also a state representative for Celebrate Recovery, and so I oversee our county where we live, Tuolumne County, and the next county over, Calaveras County. And my main objective is making sure that this is a safe place for people to come. I think that is the number one reason why people have the hardest time recovering, is they don't feel safe in some spaces, and so they keep it to themselves. And truly, that's what I wanted. That's what I figured out in treatment. And during those 10 months prior to coming to start Celebrate Recovery, I was in intense counseling, aftercare counseling after my treatment program 2 or 3 times a week, where I was still processing a lot of my trauma, building new tools and how to deal with life. Having a safe place that I had at treatment, and a safe place that I was learning to be safe for myself, safe for my family, and so I wanted to bring that to my community, bring that to my church, that safety, so that people can come and start processing things that are very difficult.
If I could just add one quick thing to that.
You bet.
Sometimes when we think about going to a group like that, we think that, well, you know, everybody there is struggling with something completely different than I am. I'm not them. I don't have that problem. And that's true, and we're all different. But what's really cool about it is you find that the symptom may be different. The way we acted out, the way we chose to do something that was harmful to us to mask it is different, but the core feelings inside that cause that, you can relate to what people say.
Absolutely.
So easily. And you would not necessarily guess that unless you had been through it. But leading those groups, it's like, wow, that's not how I did it, but I sure felt that way.
Yeah.
I did something different. But it was very, very good and very beneficial.
Yeah, it's really beneficial for compassionate empathy, and realizing that we're all in this together. We all have the same set of feelings, and we all have triggers, and we've all had things that are really hurtful to us, and we can be there for one another by being that safe place for one another. And I really felt like with Celebrate Recovery, it was the first time that I had really been able to be heard, where somebody wasn't going to interrupt me and tell me what they thought that I should do, but instead actually listening to how I felt without trying to fix it, but just listening to how I felt. And then with God's help, I was able to process my own pain. And a lot of times I came up with my own solutions with Jesus about how I should handle things. And that's one of the greatest things about Celebrate Recovery and recovery groups, is it's an opportunity for you to really begin healing, really begin to hear yourself, really begin to understand the pain that I had caused for myself, for my family, and go, wait a second. I'm hearing myself share this. This is real. This is not made up. This is really what happened. These are the things that I did. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do things differently. So there's a lot of power in that.
Can you talk a little bit about how leading Celebrate Recovery played a role in your own recovery?
Absolutely. And again, just what I just shared with you, hearing myself share in those small groups. Also teaching the 12 steps. We spent a lot of time during the week prior. Our meetings met on Monday nights, so he and I spent a lot of time looking over the lessons, asking God to show us what he wanted us to teach. And it was an opportunity for us to not only gain a lot of trust and understanding of God, it was also an opportunity for us to really hear about the 12 steps, and it was also, again, another opportunity to share our personal experience. I really think that one of my greatest healing tools has been being vulnerable, being open, being raw, being willing to say, Jesus loves me, what I did, the way that I felt about myself, the way that I was raised, or the messages that I received are not who I am. I am a precious child of God. Yeah, and so that was really super beneficial.
And leading that kind of forced you into the place of being present with that.
Absolutely, and
You
walking
couldn't
that
back
out.
You had a commitment.
Yeah,
Right.
right. It was a lot of accountability. Super good for early recovery, because early recovery is touch and go. There's a lot of emotions, and I remember I shared earlier that I had post-acute withdrawal symptoms because I had been using for a really, really long time high levels of anti-anxiety and high pain, big-time pain medication, dilaudid injections. I mean, I just had incredible amount of substances in my system. So it took me over a year and a half to go through that post-acute withdrawal. So what happened to me with anxiety is I had incredible moments of anxiety. Because, you know, whatever your body, you take away the medication, medication was given for anxiety, and I had taken it and built up a tolerance, so I was taking more. So now you take the medication away, and my body is like, wait a second. And so I would have I'd be driving early in recovery, and I needed to pull over because I was in a sweat and just shaking, and, you know, just because of that withdrawal. So it was really touch and go, and my attitude and my behavior wasn't that great always, and I'm sure that was super tough on my husband and kids. It's just the reality of it. I remember, we talked a little bit about it also before. I remember you said you prayed for God to take it away. I prayed for God to take it away from me. I prayed every single day. I said, just take this away from me. He didn't. And I couldn't understand for the longest time. I'm in a place now in my recovery and my walk with him that I completely understand. He wanted me to feel every single bad part of it because he wanted me to be able to have that compassion and empathy when I go into those dark places with people and help them overcome as well.
And if I could just answer real quick on what doing celebrate recovery, how that was beneficial for our recovery.
I was actually going to throw that one at you because I wanted to hear your journey stepping into that leadership role and your recovery with that too. So, perfect.
Sure. Yeah. You talked about the small groups, the sharing. It's a place where you don't get interrupted. One of the guidelines for the group is that you have your 3 minutes to whatever time to share what's really on your heart. And everybody's there to listen and not to say, oh yeah, I did that, or oh, mine was different, or you know, my grandma did it a different way. That's not how it was. You actually listen. And so it gives people an opportunity to share. I think the biggest thing for me, it kind of takes me back to something that we would joke about in dental school, but it actually was the truth. In dental school, the joke was watch one, do one, teach one. And so there's no better way to learn something than to have to actually teach it, because you got to understand it a whole lot better. Absolutely. If you're going to teach it, because somebody asks you a question, well, I just read it here. No, that's not a very good answer. Yeah, you know, and so you apply it and you put our personal past and situations with it, and we, as Nicole said, we would share our journeys and be kind of vulnerable as you teach. It goes a lot further than just saying what the book says, you know.
Right.
So that was a big thing for me, I think.
Absolutely.
Your journey also included a little bit of maybe accepting that you needed to be a part of that too.
Correct. Yes. As we talked about earlier today, you know, the person that's not actually using the substance thinks that the other person's the only problem. And yes, that is a problem, and that needs to be taken care of before we can address everything else. But then when we get to everything else, you realize, oh, Jesus has a lot of work to do in me too. And so that process was amazing. You walk through it and you find out there's other people that struggle with similar things. And just eye-opening, I guess, would probably be the biggest way to describe it.
Do you mind sharing the story where we were sent to a Celebrate Recovery one day? They had a Celebrate Recovery one day, and I wanted to go. I was interested. I was going to do Celebrate Recovery. He was going to help me by supporting me. But can you share about what God did?
Absolutely. So it was just a couple hours away, so we spent the night before it, and no, it was the night after. Okay, get the story straight.
It's been a while.
It has been a long time now. Anyway, Celebrate Recovery as an organization, I'll give you a little bit of background. It started in Southern California at Saddleback Church in Lake Forest, and grown to where now there's about 35,000 churches around the country that have one as part of their ministry to their community. And so it's a big organization, and they have some, you know, really good guidelines, and they have meetings in different parts of the country to help train people and to also bring new people in that might be interested in helping to lead one in their church. And so they call it a one-day seminar. So we went to that before that we started because we needed to learn how to do that process. Anyway, that night after it was over, I go, yeah, that's great. I think, you should do that. And I said, and I can even help you. Maybe I'll run the computer and put the slides up, And then, and then actually I woke up in the middle of the night and, we had some other conversations today about God speaking to people and telling them things at particular moments. So, there was nobody talking. She was sound asleep. And I woke up with God saying, yeah, that's a great program. And you're going to be a co-leader with her and you're going to help her because you need it too. And I'm like, okay, if you say so. Can't really counter that.
Yeah, so awesome.
Yeah, and I love how, again, as we start to see, one person makes these commitments and these changes and dives all in, and it starts to kind of, it's either jump on board or be left behind at that point. And
Right.
so, you're praying and like giving it all to God and finally finding a recovery program. And then you're diving headfirst into your recovery, and now you have to jump on board and come along and take the journey seriously for yourself too. So I'd love to hear a little bit how your relationship grew and changed throughout maybe the next 5 years after recovery.
You want to start?
You can go ahead.
Okay. God was so present in both of our hearts, and He's just so gracious when He takes us through the healing process. He's so kind, He's so loving, He's so gentle. And He gave both of us, and He particularly gave for me a gentleness for myself as I was aligning my life with, it's what Jesus says about me. It's not the pain that I've had, the way that I grew up. I'm going to choose to believe what Jesus died on. When Jesus died on that cross, I'm going to choose to receive that and believe that for myself, that I am worthy, that He died on that cross, and that my life matters. And with that kind of new love that I had for myself and going through the forgiveness process, I just had a brand new love and a brand new understanding of the partner that He placed me with years before. And it wasn't just all roses and all wonderful all the time. We had a lot of long talks. We had a lot of hurtful talks. We had a lot of honesty. And again, I just want to circle back around and say, when you want to recover from something, when you're struggling from anything and you're keeping it kind of like, this is going on, everybody, the elephant in the room, this is going on, nobody's really talking about it. When you're willing to put those things aside and have the courage to start having those hard conversations, to start apologizing and start living your life like you're sorry, and I truly was sorry. In fact, when we were doing this week, when we were going through this, we were talking about it. We spent several weeks, Tom, Jim, and I, on the phone talking about this process. I know that Wednesday I had a really tough day and just was riddled with shame from the enemy. And I remember calling Tom up and just crying Wednesday morning and saying, I'm so sorry. It's interesting, God brought me back this week to that early part of recovery. It was a very sweet time. It was a very hard time between us, but God was there, present, giving me grace and mercy and understanding of how much He has forgiven me, and therefore I need to extend that forgiveness to myself and as well as to you, and kind of reboot and say, hey, we were caught up in something that was not of God, that God had not intended in our life. But when we surrender to Him, when we work for Him, when we begin to be honest and open, He will help us pick up the pieces of that, and He will create a brand new life.
So as you answer that, I'm just going to focus you a little bit. I'd love to hear maybe an example or a story that illustrates how God was able to do these things, how us as a family maybe struggled through some of these things, and how you learned a story or something that illustrates implementing these new tools. I don't know, is there a moment where you can say, like, okay, we're doing this differently, and maybe you took a step back afterwards and you saw the difference?
Yes. I just had my answer formulated for the other question. So
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. But I'll think as I talk. I'll pray too. It's a process. For sure, I think the first 5 years is a learning period for both of us. We both had a strong motivation to want to make everything work and be healthy at this point. But we still had some of our old habits, as far as at least relationally, you know. And so there was a lot of forgiveness involved. I think one of the big things that I learned, I don't know if I have a specific story, but just in talking about things, we both were learning so much, and we were thinking about them for ourselves, but then it's so easy when you go through that process to see what she needs to do. Oh, I just learned this. Man, if you would just act that way, wouldn't it be great? You know, so that still was going on, and she was doing the same thing with me. And we were almost like
Each other's sponsors.
coaches or sponsors for each other, and that ultimately has been actually really good.
Now.
But, you know, in the moment, if it's a little bit heated, that wasn't good at all. It's like, well, what do you have to say about it? You know, fortunately, the mouth didn't move everything.
We're so
you know,
human.
but, you know, I think that's probably one of the biggest things is accepting, recognizing that when we had things like that we saw for each other, that it wasn't so much a criticism as maybe that was God giving her some insight into something that I wasn't seeing yet. Very specific, though. I think for me, it was. So we have a business. We have a dental office. Of course, my non-conflict. You know, so I'm really good at focusing on what I do, working with the patient. That comes easy. But I struggled with having boundaries and having good guidelines and upholding those with employees, because I was under the foolish assumption that, you know, they all just wanted to do what I wanted them to do, and that they would, you know, they were out for our best interests. If any of you have a business, you know how funny that would be. We have some wonderful employees, but still, you got to lead them. And so it was a struggle for me to do that. I think, you know, I wanted them to like me. I wanted us to have a happy little place. And, you know, go back at home, a happy little place was no conflict. So, you know, you have to, it's like I can apply it to here, but can I apply it over here in this other scenario, which is so different? And so she would see that.
Because I'm his administrator at the office,
and she would see,
I do the...
I mean, she has, if you ever need to know whether someone's being straight with you, just let her watch them for 5 minutes. And so, you know, she has the meter that goes from honest to BS, you know, like really quick. Sorry.
You're in church.
But and she sees it, and she's very accurate. God's given her that gift. I mean, the Holy Spirit has given her that gift to be able to see the discernment.
Yeah.
And so I didn't see it. Now I do. After all these years of learning from her and God teaching me too, we come home and talk about, oh yeah, I saw that too.
We just need accountability as humans.
You know, and so I think that was one of the things that was such a struggle, because she would suggest it, and I'm like, oh, I gotta do that again, and I didn't really want to. But the growth has been, I need to, and that's part of my responsibility. And so doing that has increased our relationship, because now we have a lot of trust for each other. Mm-hmm. And we know that if one or the other of us suggests something, that there's something behind it. It's not just a whim.
Yeah, I think that where you came from, it was like if I suggested something, it was like, oh no, kind of took you back to, now I have to take care of this person's feelings. And instead of, I mean, at this point in our recoveries, he knows that he doesn't need to meet my feelings. It's great, we don't hurt each other's feelings, we love one another, but where I get my true value is through Jesus Christ, and same for him. And so it's nice to just, when I ask you something or when you ask me something and we have a need, we know that it's coming from a place of healthy something there needs to be a boundary or some more accountability with something versus just taking care of a need, like in the addiction. So,
I'd like to spend a minute and maybe catch up on my side of the story up through this time period. So she went to this New Spirit Life Recovery in 2000 and end of 11, beginning of 2012. I was in college at the time, and so she comes out of recovery and is excited about the new things that she's learned, but from my perspective, in some ways, she was more abrasive and more difficult to be around.
sure.
Because whatever the addiction was like masking some of the emotions that were raw, and you didn't have practiced tools
Correct.
to deal with them. There's this interesting thing that research has studied, and they've recognized that when we have some sort of trauma as a kid, as we're growing up, if we don't process that trauma, we may grow physically, but we don't grow relationally. And so you get someone that has some trauma when they're 10 years old, and they could be 57 and still have the relational maturity of a 10-year-old. So
It's usually when the event took place.
So she's now back, right? And I remember this one conversation. We were at home, and she came up to me and she said, I'm so sorry for everything that I've done. I know that you're really angry at me, and it'll take you forever to forgive me. But one day when you've done all the hard work, this is a little bit of a paraphrase, when you've done all the hard work that I've done, you'll realize that you're messed up too, and then you'll be okay.
Can I say sorry now?
That was a little bit of a paraphrase,
I'm truly
right?
sorry.
But that's the way I understood the conversation. And so this is an illustration to say how it actually was relatively difficult.
You just get over it. I'm back now.
Well, and
Get
she
over
wasn't
it.
telling me to get over it. She was telling me, you're really messed up. Someday you'll find that out. And when you've done all the work and forgiven people, then you'll be okay.
Wow.
And,
Little pious there, huh?
well, and I don't even think it was coming from that as much as it was just you recognized how much this had done for you. And you knew the culture that you guys raised us in.
Right.
And you could see pain that I was carrying that I probably couldn't see. Because, to be honest, she wasn't wrong. But again,
My delivery was wrong.
what I saw was normal. And
Right.
so, I didn't know.
Sure.
You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so,
You become desensitized to your environment.
yeah, definitely.
You do.
So I told you, I think it was last night, that I carried a lot of stress in my body, in my stomach, and the longer I was in college, the harder it became to focus, to do my homework. It was I remember it sometimes being almost physically painful to sit there and write a paper. It was just so difficult to focus. And so because there's pain, and then my managing of pain was avoidance, then it was just find something to do to not have to feel this pain.
Can I say something? Can you hold your thought for just 1 second? Okay, there's just something that I need to convey about this. So in college, there's a lot of people that have gone through a lot of trauma. There's a lot of people who have gone through addicted homes. So they go to the doctor and you can't focus. So then they put you on ADD or ADHD medication. And had you gone to a doctor, you could have probably, with those symptoms, found a doctor that would have prescribed that to you. Now, we all know in where we live now in this day and age that there is a huge, my dad took those and then eventually graduated to methamphetamines. So this is where it is so incredibly important, and my message to anybody that I share with, and that is, we have to deal with our trauma. We have to talk about our pain. I love doctors. I think they're amazing. They are God's hand and feet in so many ways. However, We are so caught up in just giving a pill for something instead of looking at the emotional component and healing that part up with sharing and processing through counseling.
Yeah, absolutely. That is not to say that there's not a place for a lot of medications.
Absolutely.
But there's also a huge need to be able to just kind of recognize what's going on in a person. And so, yeah, for me, the easiest thing to escape with was like TV shows or movies or something. And the interesting thing is when I was in 10th grade, so that was like in the height of her addiction before any, like things were just ramping up to bad at that point. I'd come home and I'd put on a show and watch it from like when I got home to when I went to bed. And if you asked me why I did it, I would tell you because I just enjoyed the show. And I was doing my schoolwork, like I wasn't neglecting life duties, but when I'm older and looking back at what I'm doing, it's easy to see that the 16-year-old me was escaping from an uncomfortable and hurtful life by just zoning out on a show. And so, so moving through college, like I said, progressively more difficult to focus and to not escape. And then relationships with her was actually really difficult too, because around that time we had a conversation once where you told me that I don't love you and that we don't have a relationship. And I was like, I don't even understand this, because to me, like we live in the same place, we talk, like all of these things mean a relationship.
Yeah, we've known each other for
yeah. And I think for you, it was me being able to access some of the more like personal emotions, and not having a lot of tools on how to tactfully have those conversations. They were kind of difficult. Another thing that colored our relationship at that time, there was one time I was talking to a mentor of mine, and I just said, it's like, everything that I do, it seems like she sees it in the worst light possible. I bought this motorcycle. It's a street bike. It was in college, So I shot her a quick text, maybe with a picture of the bike, and said, okay, Mom, you can start worrying.
Oh, yeah.
And she was very angry, and she didn't. Now, the way we have conversations around anger is very different, but at that time, her MO was to basically not do anything for like a week, and then just like pounce like a lion. And all those emotions had been brewing for the week, And she's telling herself that I'm making fun of her for worrying about me, and that I don't really care about her caring about me. This is a story she's telling herself.
Right.
And so then I kind of get blindsided by this, and I'm like, I don't even understand where this came from. Sure. And it wasn't until probably 2020 where I realized that she thought that I hated her. And I think you hung on to that, some of it, because of the insecurities that you grew up with. And stepping into a family as a stepmom, you could see the things that I would do, and you just assumed I didn't want you to be there. Right. And so that was a lens that you ended up like seeing our relationship through.
Yeah, and I just want to add that you asked me and that brings up something for me. What are some of the things you deal with in early recovery, and the things that I dealt with when I started Celebrate Recovery? It was a lot of projection, feeling of myself. These are the things that I'm dealing with. This is the lens that I see it. And so then what you begin to do when you're overwhelmed and you're not medicating anymore, you put it somewhere else. And so that was also something that we had to work through.
Yeah.
As well.
And actually, here's a freebie for you. A phrase or a way of thinking about these things that has really helped me. Each of us sees, like only about 7% of what we communicate is in the words itself. The rest is in the tone, and the body language actually carries the most. And so we see the way people hold themselves, carry themselves, and we interpret based on that.
Right. That's true.
And sometimes, like I might be coming out of the bathroom and someone is coming in, and I look at eyes, make eye contact, and they kind of put a scowl on, and then I go into my office and I sit down and I say, why is that person so upset with me? Like, what did I do to offend John? I can pick on him because he's my friend. And I might be saying, well, John has no right to be mad at me. Like, what does he know about this? And I start kind of building up this kind of intense emotion about how much it's unfair for John to just like criticize me, and I read his face, you know? And to be able to recognize that we tell ourselves those stories is really powerful. And sometimes it's helpful to write them down so you can see how silly they are. And then this is the skill then, when you want to talk to someone about it, I might go up to John and I can say, you can use this language. John, we were passing in the hallway and I saw this look on your face, and the story that I'm telling myself is that you are upset at me for this reason. Right. But I just wanted to check that with you. And then John can say, oh, I'm so sorry, no, I really had to go to the bathroom. No. I just backed into a tree with my new Jeep, or whatever, you know?
Right.
Like it
Had nothing to do with you.
most likely has nothing to do with you. That language, the story I am telling myself, it's really helpful for communication.
And that's what happened in our early recovery. We did so much of that with one another, and obviously with a strong example between you and I.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much shame and so much guilt coming out of an addiction. And I've shared quite a bit about it, and I've actually had people say, oh, it's okay, you don't have to talk about it. I don't need to bring it up. But actually, the more that I talk about it, the stronger that I become in Jesus Christ. That's truly the key, is the shame and the guilt that we carry, the stories that we want to talk about, the feelings that we have. We need to be sharing them and processing them with someone safe, because here's why. Because oftentimes, like Tom was with his friend John, believing a lie. And so by talking about it, he found out the truth. And so in processing my feelings, I was able to find out with God's word, and with somebody a Christian counselor, Christian sponsor, Celebrate Recovery, I was able to replace those lies that I had been believing for so long with God's truth, and then walk that out. And it was life-changing and healing.
And I think we kind of share some of these little hiccups along the road to let you know that when you change something, there's always going to be some little speed bumps, and it's really normal. And it's okay, because it's a learning process.
And the recovery, we call it like the recovery process, the healing journey. A more theological way of saying it would be sanctification.
Right.
Well, the other thing that we talk about, might be a good place to interject that, is when we talk about a behavior, or if it's a chemical addiction, we talk about sobriety, and we also talk about recovery. Well, there's quite a bit of difference. Sobriety is actually the absence of practicing our bad habits. The behaviors that are so harmful to us and other people. So that's really sobriety. That habit's not happening anymore.
You replaced it with something healthy.
Absolutely.
Or not.
Or not yet.
It's really easy to switch addictions.
Yes.
Yes, maybe
They
not yet.
call it the dry drunk. Somebody who stops drinking and now they're the angriest person you've ever known.
That's the difference with, go ahead.
We cut you off, so you finish.
No,
your-
you're good.
We both cut you off.
And so and then recovery is a whole different scenario. That's what starts at that point. Once the sobriety happens, the recovery starts, and we move through that. It's a lifelong process of letting go of our selfish pride and rearranging our priorities to align with what Jesus actually wants for us.
Yeah.
And so it actually fits any of us who were born into this world with a sin problem.
Can I add
Because
some?
we all need recovery from the position, the place that we were born in our own self.
Like stinking thinking is
Yep.
what we say?
Yep. Go ahead.
I don't remember what I was going to say now.
Oh, sorry.
I have 2 stories I want to share, and then I think my dad wants to walk you through the 12 steps, and then we want to hit you with some recovery resources. And then, of course, you can chat and talk to us, but we want to make sure we're being conscious of your time. Someone told me to warm this place up, but now everyone's falling asleep. So I probably should
It's
turn it
warm
down
in
to
here now.
55.
It's lunch, a yummy lunch.
These 2 stories are to illustrate the speed bumps and the growth process, and maybe like the community aspect of things, okay? So when I was working in Fresno, so this is now 2016? 2016. So she's been sober for 4 years, and there was a situation where the 3 of us were on the phone talking about something, and I was uncomfortable with something, but I wasn't willing to say it because I thought, if I say what I'm thinking and feeling, she's going to get upset. And they knew I was kind of hemming and hawing and beating around the bush like crazy, and they're just like, just say it. And so I shared it, and she was like, oh, and just like, I think it probably cut, and so you hurt, and so then you got even more upset at me, and the whole thing really blew up. It was really difficult, and I remember thinking to myself,
I'm thankful I don't remember
like,
this.
I remember thinking to myself, that's what I get for sharing. So this is in the recovery process. I'm reading resources. When they first got clean, they're like, you need counseling, and so they signed us up with this counselor that was through New Spirit Life Recovery, so it's working in that same style of counseling, Christian counseling. And I definitely learned resources working with this guy, but I didn't have the felt needs that would have made it maybe as valuable as at different times. And actually, that's probably like an important thing to note about counseling. It's like you can step into it and step out of it as you notice things about yourself.
And go where you're the most comfortable.
And I had done some
Safe.
counseling with some of my mentors at that conference. Our conference had a marriage family therapist that we could talk to, and so I'd done some work, and I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm trying to be accessible emotionally, and then I felt like I got burned like crazy. But like, I don't know if it's later that day or if it was the next day. I went out, I was in Fresno, I just went out and found like an orchard where I could just kind of be by myself and just prayed and was kind of, talking to God and I don't know if I called or I texted, I just said I was, because after she said some things and I said some things, and so I just said that I was sorry. And then it felt like your heart just melted, and then all of a sudden, like you were like overflowing with care, and like the defensiveness had left basically, and it was really powerful to see how, like, even though there's still some of the same knee-jerk reactions to relationships, there's this growth and healing in her and the things that God was doing in me. And one thing I learned in that time period is that you had a real relationship with God and that you listened to Him. There were several things, and I can't think of a specific off the top of my head, but I remember several times there was something that really bothered me, and I was like feeling like I needed to tell you about it. But I also was hesitant to put myself in that place of trying to fix you, because I know that that's like a knee-jerk reaction for me. And then a week, a month, a year later, we'd be talking about something, and I've never said anything to you, and you're just sharing how God shared with you this and you've learned this. And I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I was like thinking. And there's so many things that I have been at the place where I just saw God growing and changing you. So the second story I want to give you, I'll make it a little bit faster, is in 2019, maybe 2019. And so we're another 4 years down the road. And again, I had something. We had recently had a pretty big conflict about something. And one of the things that she shared with me is that when we have an argument, I don't show up. And I had a really hard time showing up because when she's upset, her brain and mouth work really fast, and mine works slow.
Still working on that.
And so, she'd like fire off like 16 things, and I'd want to address each one, but by the time I could get here, we were already down the street. And it was just really hard. So I didn't know how to show up. And she basically just said that she wants a relationship with me where I'm willing to tell her how I feel about her, even if it's going to be hurtful. And so, not terribly long after that, there was something I needed to share with her, and I was really scared to share it with her because I was like just afraid of the anger. And so I spent an hour or two like prepping, writing notes, and finally when the time came for this 3-minute conversation, it was like, she was like, "Oh, thank you for sharing." And I could feel like a weight like
God is so good.
flow out. So I wanted to share those two because like even in the middle of recovery, 5 years down the road, there's still like what God is doing with her has been helping me, but there's still like it's not a fix, right?
No, it's a process.
But we go another 5 years down the road, and I'm learning more about the stuff that I'm holding on to. Right. And now that I'm more aware of it, I'm able to hold it out to God and share maybe with someone. I had to family is great, but it's for stuff like, especially if the conflict is in the family, it's better probably to do a lot of that healing somewhere else and then go talk to your family because it's
third party.
They're part of the pain.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But then to move 5 years later and to see how she's again given me this invitation to open up a part of me that has been naturally closed up since a little kid, and then it being received really well. So you can see that growth through those 10 years.
And I really believe that when I surrendered to God after I got off the phone with my dad and fell to my knees and gave it all to God, I really, truly believe that He was with every single one of us and our other two boys as well, although they have their own stories, and if they were here, I'd let them share their stories about our family healing and recovering. But I just believe that He just kept pursuing us, just kept pursuing that healing process. I was so selfish in my addiction, I just could not even comprehend anybody else's feelings. I was so inundated, with myself. And so as the process continued, I was able to heal, replace those lies with truth, turn to the people that I love the very most and listen to what they have to say, listen to how they feel, and be respectful and open and willing to change whatever I needed to do to make them feel comfortable. Whatever I needed to change that was causing pain. So the beautiful thing about recovery is you get to do the really hard stuff. I love so much that I'm no longer that selfish person where I'm just like, what's happening with me today? But God has just really opened up a whole new world about just my family, and then He's created the ripple effect of my community, and then now being able to come and share with you guys He's really super amazing. And we go into resources
Yeah,
at this point.
Dad, I think you wanted to share the 12 steps.
for
If
it.
you wanted
Yep.
to,
Sure.
can you do that in
Quickly.
5 minutes?
Five
I think
minutes.
so, without a doubt. I do want to say real quickly, it's interesting, Jesus was having a conversation with the Pharisee who said, what's the greatest commandment? And he said, love God with all your heart. And the second is very similar to that, except it's love your neighbor, as yourself. And so I just felt like as we were doing this little talk, the reality of it is the neighbor's, according to they said, well, who's my neighbor? And he told the story of the Good Samaritan and everything. But the reality of it is our first neighbor is our family.
Absolutely.
And so we're supposed to love them and uphold them. And that involves more than just saying, yeah, I love you and I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you. It means, I'm going to help you through difficult processes.
do the work
and
together.
we're going to do the work together to support each other. And so it's pretty awesome. So the 12 steps, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase them into more regular language and maybe a brief sentence or so about each one. The first one is that we need to recognize our need for help beyond where we're at, whatever we're involved in doing, feeling, emotions, stomach pain, upset, whatever it is. In our world today, there's so many things out there that can take our focus. But we're powerless to do it ourselves, to get out of it. If we find ourselves in that position, we have to actually recognize that, and we have to admit that. Step 2 is an awesome one. We recognize that Jesus has the power to help us, and he's incredibly willing at any given moment. So we work into our mind, and it's easiest. That's not a hard step for those of us that are Christians, but for people that haven't had that experience, recognize that God's going to really help me. I don't even know him. It's easier for us. But still, we have to say, okay, I'm willing to give this to you. And the third one is that. Say, God, I am going to let you handle this because I can't do it anymore. I'm going to let you do it. And often, we were talking real quickly, Nicole was talking about how a 30-day treatment program, if you are involved with a chemical addiction, they get to about that point, the first 3, and that's wonderful, but there's also 12, and so that means there's 9 more.
Right.
And so care afterwards is really, really important to continuing. The fourth one is we go over what we sometimes call our life story. It's balanced, it's good things and bad things, just an honest look at where we've been in our life and what's happened and who we are. There's like my personality and my character, but yet it's not just as simple as that. There's the character that I show other people, there's the character that I think I am, and then there's the character that I really am. And so it's God, recognizing that we have to lay all that out so that we can just look at it, basically. So we're giving ourselves an honest view. The next one is to admit to ourselves and to God that the things that we've done that aren't good, things that are wrong. And again, as Christians, that one doesn't seem too hard. We know that we're supposed to ask forgiveness of our sins. It's something we do in church and individually as Christians on a regular basis. However, the other person part is not always easy. It's easier to admit it to God. And so communication, doing it in a scenario where we're sharing with someone, there's a huge difference when you do that. Tom was talking about this morning, when you do that and share with someone, it's like the backpack full of rocks just is lifted off. And so it's pretty amazing. And then the sixth one is we say that we're ready now to have God actually work in our lives and heal us. And the seventh one is we go ahead and, before we were talking about getting ready to ask for forgiveness. So the seventh one is we go ahead and do that. We're saying, God, I'm really ready. I'm tired of where I've been. I want you to take over for me and take these things away. And then the next one's a little bit harder sometimes. That's make a list of people we have harmed and be ready to ask forgiveness for them. But we don't have to do it yet at that step. All we have to do is be ready to.
God will do the rest.
So we have to work through that. And of course, there's a lot of things to go around that. The next one is to go ahead and ask forgiveness. And of course, we have to do this in a way that's safe for them and ourselves. There's often a lot of situations that people are in that may not be safe for them to go back to a person.
Absolutely.
To do that.
Sometimes it's just writing a note to them.
Very much so.
Maybe not even sending it.
And maybe not even sending it.
Especially if they're not alive.
True.
Well, that's hard to do. to send it.
Yeah.
No, but there's a lot of work that's done when people have passed still.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I derailed you.
No, you're good. And so that point is, it's interesting, they kind of, in recovery circles, they talk about those first 9 as the steps where first we work on our relationship with God, the first 3, and the next 6 are on our relationships with other people,
Right.
asking forgiveness,
That's
cleaning up things. And then the last 3 are things that we need to keep doing and to keep ourselves on the right path as we continue forward. So the 10th one is take personal responsibility for our behavior, and when we're wrong, promptly admit it. That means I make a mistake, I snap because I'm irritated, I'm hungry, or upset, or tired, and so I snap, and then instead of running away from it, I say, man, I'm really sorry, dude. That wasn't about you, that was me, and I'm sorry, please forgive me. And it's so much easier to take care of it in the moment than it is to wait till the resentment builds. And I get more scared to ask for forgiveness, and before she gets, and I'm just using us as an example, but the other person then gets more upset about it. And you know, as we're told in the Bible, and I just thought of this right now, so I don't have the text, but you know, we're not supposed to go to bed with our anger. And this really fits with that category because, why? Because God made us, and He knew that when we do that, it brews in there. And it's not good when it brews in there. That's for sure. 11, something we suggest here in church all the time, daily prayer and Bible study, asking the Holy Spirit to do His will in our lives. And so that's daily, and that's a regular situation that we're doing to connect with God and asking Him to be with us. And then the last one is really the one where we serve other people. It's after all these changes have been made in me, not that any of us individually have arrived, but we're further along this path from where we started, that now we can share and help other people and take this message that they can get help as well. So thank you. That's, I have a few, I don't know if you want to do these or not, but kind of quick takeaways, but
Yeah, sure. 2
you want
minutes.
to do those or me?
You can. You're doing great.
Quick little things, I'll just read them. Focus on Jesus instead of me. Being a Christian is a 7-day-a-week proposition. It's seventh-day evidence. We talk about the seventh day all the time. But we need to be a 7-day Christian.
7 days.
Absolutely, all 7 days of the week. I need to clear out the baggage in my life so that I can be real. The masks need to go away. We need to lose the elephants. We don't have room for those elephants in our living room. We need to have the courage to speak the truth and to stand up for what is right. We have the courage not to cower to people-pleasing, to want to just take it easy to please. Now, I'm not saying we have to address everybody and call out their stuff, but we just need to know that people-pleasing is a way of me copping out of my real feelings, and we don't want to do that anymore. Truly offering forgiveness, recognizing that I need it just as badly. I kind of like to say that one again, because that, to me, that's a really huge one. Truly giving forgiveness when someone asks, or be ready to give it even if they haven't asked, because I need it just as bad. All of this has transformed our lives and our marriage and our families. So thank you for letting us share with you.
Probably to say it fully, more accurately, transformed and is transforming.
Continuing
Absolutely.
to. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah, healing. We're healing, not healed.
Okay, so we got a fire hose of resources for you, as long as the clicker works. Somebody want to run upstairs and tick us onto the next slide?
Do you want us to sit
Thanks, Tim.
down or stay?
What?
Do you want us to sit down or stay? Or
Whatever
do
you
you want
want.
to answer? Do you
Whatever
want
you
to
want.
answer questions about any of the resources?
I was gonna, so I'm gonna give you, we put up probably almost 10, maybe 12 different resources. Most of them are books. This is not this is like maybe a fire hose. This is not supposed to be here, take all of this and do it all.
No.
But if you sense something stirring and just pick one that sounds interesting and maybe feels like it hits a need that you're feeling and go through that one. Okay, so this is the Christian Codependency and Recovery Workbook. It's by Stephanie Tucker. And it's what it says it is. It's a workbook. It takes you, in a lot of ways, through these 12 steps to just take a snapshot of who I am, and it helps you prayerfully to walk forward with God, with who you are, basically. Okay, let's go to the next one. Maybe. Mom, you've referenced this one several times. The body keeps the score. In this one, she does a really good job of, actually, I don't know if it's a she.
Is it
Yeah,
he?
sorry, it's a he. I have an audio book, so not. Just basically, like, this in some ways is very Adventist, because we as Adventists talk about how we are a soul, a living being, right? The way that you feel and think and like your emotional health, because you are a being, a living soul, your emotional health directly affects your physical health. And so she talks about those things and ways to pay attention to what your body is telling you. So John Bradshaw, this is not the Seventh-day Adventist, John Bradshaw. I've got 2 books of his on here. Healing the Shame That Binds You. He uses the language of toxic shame, but basically it's those shame tapes that say, I am bad. And it's very practical at, like, moving through those. This one is a little bit broader. He does talk about that in here, but this is specifically on family systems. This was really helpful for me as reading it, to be able to identify how I act out certain parts in our family system, and to have some language and like goggles to see it was really helpful for me to be able to then hold it out to God and say, like, what are we going to do with this? Boundaries is, all of these books teach a lot of the same things, but from a different angle. And this one specifically is about relationships and how to have a healthy one here.
And
put up a
also
boundary
with
that
yourself.
leaves the bad out and keeps the good in and lets the good in. And it's just, it's very practical.
It's also not just for relational, but it teaches you personal boundaries for yourself. And
Yeah.
understanding the importance of each one of us having a healthy set of boundaries for ourselves.
And in a lot of ways, once you can help, especially if you don't have healthy boundaries, especially as like a codependent, when building them can be really freeing.
Absolutely.
It helps you let go of whatever you're trying to take on or control that's not you.
Tom, could this be a spot where I take
Steps to
10
Christ.
seconds
Beautiful.
to say
Beautiful.
something? So when I was working in some counseling, there's several ways you can go about trying to protect yourself. And you can have the coat of mail out here that blocks everything. And yeah, the fiery darts don't get in, but nothing gets out and nothing good gets in. And so that's unhealthy for us. I can be open and not have that protection, my shield out there. But then that's dangerous too, because everything gets in. And everything that comes in out here might get out, which that may not be so great either. And so what my counselor suggested is that we have this permeable Kevlar shield that is in our mind, of course, but is out here around us all the time. And the good news is I get to control what comes in and what goes out. And so with God's help, not just me, but with God's help. And so that is a boundary. Something bad comes in, and I know that's not from a good place. It doesn't have to affect me anymore, because I know that that's coming from someone or even somebody great that's in a bad place right now. So I don't have to accept that. It can bounce off, and I don't have to take the hurt from that.
It's not about you.
It's not about me anymore. However, some good information comes in. It's completely permeable, and I can open it whenever I want to and bring it through. So I'm not walled off, but I'm just
You're
being
selective.
careful and selective. And it works in both directions. That's the good part, because that was the external coming in, but it also works going out. If I have something positive to say, something beneficial, then it's open. But if I'm in a place where I'm upset and maybe the mouth wants to spout off, then it's closed for a little bit until I can go pray and settle down and let God control what's going on in there, and then it can open again. So anyway, just a little example of how you can have a boundary that works both directions.
Yeah, it's a good illustration.
I was going to say something too. In early recovery, I had this thing that I did. This is about boundaries, just really quick, boundaries for yourself. So I had this thing in early recovery where I had to like take care of, I got to clean all this up so that we can be okay, you know. And so I would, if I was upset, I would text or call. You know, if I was upset, and you heard what I said, if I was upset. If I'm upset today, I don't need to go outward unless I'm going to call my sponsor, unless I'm going to go see a counselor, unless I'm going to do some processing with writing. But I don't need to bring another person into it. So I either go out for solution and up to God is the boundary that I had to set for myself. So if I'm upset, I need to process with God and I need to process with somebody else safe. Come to a place where I've worked through that, and then I can begin to be relatable to somebody else.
Yeah. Okay, I'm snapping through these fast. I know we're over time. Many of you are familiar with this book. This is actually, you may not know this, and it was not by design by anybody, but maybe just the fact that this is the way humans work, and God knows. But the 12 steps, the chapters in this will take you through the 12 steps in very different language, but the 12 steps are steps to Jesus. And so this book, in some of the more difficult times for me, like I would listen to a chapter a day on this book, and I cycled that for like a year. There's 13 chapters, so I went through it a lot. And it just brings you to the feet of Jesus. In wherever you are in the book, it brings you to the feet of Jesus.
One of my favorite books.
Speaking of devotions and time with Jesus, there are people that aren't comfortable with this book because it's written from Jesus talking to you. But I have found that, you know, you can accept what's good and not with others. And it's a really short and easy way to just start spending time with God.
I started reading this book, my 5th treatment program, and I have never stopped. I read it every day. So people have different opinions, and they need to do whatever.
It's like
Life-changing.
It's like 2, maybe 3 short paragraphs. It's written as a message from God to you, and then there's a text that it's built from. So, Stephanie Tucker again. She wrote the codependency one. Here's another one that she wrote that is. The title says it, moving beyond codependency to embrace God's design. So it's like another step past of growing. Grief share. Grief is a huge thing that ends up locking us into like a hurt of some kind, and this walks you through your grief. Often you can find groups that'll go through this together.
They're commonly in churches also as a
We may have even
outreach.
had some here, I'm not sure. I know past churches have let them. This is one of my favorites. Brene Brown, she's a Christian, but she's coming from a perspective of a researcher. And she researches shame and vulnerability, which is not very, when she started especially, not very accepted in her field. And she's got a pretty practical way of communicating how we navigate those situations. And
She's amazing to
so
listen to.
this is that. Sacred Rhythms, Ruth Haley Barton. This would be for someone who is looking to kind of wrap a lot of this recovery stuff into it's packaged in the language of your relationship with God. So these rhythms that she talks about are things like silence and spending time with God, and learning to develop these things like silence. Like when you cultivate the practice of silence in your time with God, that gives you a space to hold things with Him. So that's just an example of how the recovery process is linked to your spirituality. And so this is more on the spirituality side, but the recovery process is all through it.
Love it.
That might be the last one. I think that's the last one. So thank you so much for sitting here and listening to us share. And do you want to close us off with prayer?
Heavenly Father, we come to you in the precious, precious name of Jesus, Lord. Thank you so much. It's such a beautiful gift to be here on your Sabbath. And it's in such a beautiful church with such beautiful people, Lord. We just thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about what you've done in our family, what you're continuing to do, as we definitely recognize that it's a process. But we know where our solution is, and that's you, Jesus. We are so grateful for all that you do. Please be with each and every person here. Father, if there's any way at all that our talk can reach just one person that's hurting, that's struggling, that's feeling shame and hurting, God, I just ask that your will be done in their life, Father, for healing and a renewed relationship with you. We love you, we praise you, we thank you, we need you. In Jesus' precious, precious name, I pray, we pray. Amen.
I probably should have mentioned, these are only literature resources. A professional counselor is always helpful. Abide is a Christian counseling group that you can have phone visits with your counselor. So that's a resource. If it's sometimes hard to find a good Christian counselor, but Abide is a place you can go for that. And you can always find a Celebrate Recovery. I haven't looked in this area, but I bet there's probably one on most days of the week within a 30-minute drive of here. So those are some other resources.
Yes, and I also wanted to say spiritoflifeministry.com. It's the same lady, Stephanie Tucker. They had ran the two recovery groups, the two times, the New Life Spirit Recovery, and then now they provide online counseling services for people, and on a sliding scale. So if, it's not like, sometimes thinking of going to counseling is pretty scary because it can be so costly, but they will really work with you on a sliding scale, and sometimes no amount at all. And that is spiritoflifeministry.com.
Yeah.
And they will work with you at home, in your car. They're available anytime that's convenient for you.
And if you guys want to listen to us ever,
Yes.
her Facebook, Nicole Gearing, Monday nights at 7. We're on there every week.
We continue our teaching. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.